What's up guys, it's me Jeremy. So the Assassin's rework is pretty much confirmed by this point, and it's set to come out during what I would expect would be the next preseason update, or maybe a little bit before it. And in the Assassin class update, one of the more notable characters that's going to receive some well-deserved changes is definitely going to be Talon. He's always been in a little bit of a weird spot, especially when you compare him to some of the other Assassin champions, and he certainly is more deserving of changes than most of the other champions being looked at in the Assassin class update. As well, there are some Rioter comments recently that have popped up that actually tell us a lot about what we can expect during his rework, and what you might be able to expect will happen to Talon. And most of all, Talon's rework is shaping up to be just totally awesome. And as always, if you guys enjoyed the video, definitely hit that like button, and if you don't enjoy the video, hit that dislike. And if this video gets 5,000 ratings, I'm gonna do, let's say, 50 pull-ups. So let's start this conversation with what we know for sure, which is the handful of Rioter comments on the topic of the Talon rework / gameplay update, whatever you want to call it. So with the general Assassin rework, Riot is trying to accomplish 3 specific things within each individual champion. Number 1 is to make each assassin have healthy gameplay. This is something that Talon definitely struggles with quite a lot, since his burst damage combo is really fast and pretty easy and reliable to land that it kind of just becomes ridiculous, especially when he's ahead. And number 2 is to make each assassin bring something unique to the table, to make them worth picking over other assassins in specific situations. Again, this is something that Talon kind of struggles with quite a lot. He's honestly been kind of like the cookie cutter assassin almost in terms of mechanics as far as assassins go. He really doesn't have that many unique strengths, and he definitely has loads to improve on in this specific category. And number 3 is to make assassins meaningfully contribute to just winning the game, which Talon as well actually does have a difficult time with, since his kit overall enforces a very binary playstyle. Either he kills his intended target, in which case he does a lot to help his team win, or he just doesn't, in which case he becomes pretty much completely useless. So on paper, it looks like Talon could actually benefit quite a lot from a rework like this, but it's unclear how much change he actually needs or can actually handle to accomplish fixing those problems. So Riot's Scruffy commented in a post a while back saying that when it comes to assassins, Akali and Talon specifically are probably their top 2 in terms of just the assassins that could be so much cooler and stand to benefit a lot from a rework. As well, Riot's Static very briefly mentioned that the Talon rework specifically shows a lot of promise. And actually about 10 months ago, Riot Meddler commented on the official League of Legends forums about the idea of the Talon rework, saying that we do think that Talon could do with a bit of work at some point aimed at making him more distinct from other assassins and improving counterplay available for some enemies. And about 7 months ago, Riot Meddler expanded on that point a little bit on the forums, saying that Talon could benefit from getting a new and revamped passive, as well as trying to make the most out of his theme and really building up his thematic elements a lot more. Riot Meddler also posted something very recently just this week about Talon's passive, saying essentially that the ability already the way it is now is very poorly designed and doesn't really make that much sense to not only have on Talon, but on just any champion in the game. So it's pretty clear at this point that Talon is almost certainly going to get a completely new passive during his rework. So apart from his passive being changed, well, what can we expect to see take place? Well, the Assassin rework is definitely not going to be too complex or too big in terms of changes to the champions, because they always still want to keep the core gameplay fantasy intact. So I wouldn't be surprised if they just gave Talon his new feel and uniqueness via some mechanics introduced entirely on his passive. And I would be very surprised actually if they made significant changes to more than 2 abilities, honestly. Meddler mentioned a while back that they would either remove his passive completely and give him an entirely new ability, or just replace it with something that gives him more gameplay interactions and is a lot more impactful, in which case he'd have to lose a little bit of power in other areas of his kit maybe. As for his Q, this is probably the ability that has the most room for improvements in his kit other than his passive. They could definitely do a lot of interesting stuff with his Q, since the ability right now is kind of bland and lackluster, and there's enough room for them to actually make his Q just a new ability. His W, however, is something that is very core. It's a very core ability, so I doubt that they'll make changes to it very much or even at all or at least keep the mechanics the same, but maybe make it a bit easier to dodge, I guess. And his E probably could use some changes, but since he's an assassin, he definitely still needs to have, some form of aggressive mobility in his kit for sure, so I wouldn't expect much other than just minor changes for this ability. As for his ultimate, pretty much every single ultimate ability in the entire game is pretty core when it comes to the champion gameplay fantasy. So in the class scale reworks, we pretty much never see champions get significant changes to their ultimate. At most, they maybe get some minor mechanics tweaks or perhaps some additional new mechanics on the ability that weren't there before, but they never get their ultimate replaced with a completely new ability, so I'm sure Talon is for sure going to keep his ultimate. Overall, the biggest thing that needs to be done with Talon is that he really just needs to get some way to be unique to other assassins. Right now, his big, kind of unique strength, if you could call it that, is his reliability and the speed at which you can pull off his combo, which in practice is actually a very unfair strength to have in the first place. It's very unhealthy. So he's going to need to have more counterplay introduced to his kit, so it's really interesting to see what they might do with him, because on paper it seems like he does need a lot of changes, but in practicality, I'd only really see it being possible to change his passive and his Q, and maybe tweak the mechanics of his E a little bit, without ruining the actual fantasy of the champion. But I mean, maybe 2 abilities is enough room to work with. They do need to give him a lot more counterplay, which opens up room to introduce new interactions or new mechanics a lot actually, like making some abilities have a lot more crazy functions, a lot more depth in favor of potential to be outplayed. And since they're going to have to introduce some new mechanics, the power levels of this new Talon is honestly probably going to just be all over the place. Unlike some of the other assassins who we know for sure are going to get something that will strictly be a buff or very strictly be a nerf, Talon could honestly get either, and who knows, I mean, maybe he's going to be broken as heck after the rework, or super underpowered, or somewhere in between, but it's definitely exciting to see what's going to happen, and I personally can't wait for the Assassin's rework to take place. So what are you guys maybe hoping to see in the Talon rework? Leave a comment, and looks like that's going to be it for me today, so if you guys enjoyed the video, subscribe if you haven't already. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.